Dalai Lama.
The Dalai Lama /Dāː ʻlɑːmə is a High Lama in the Gelug or Yellow Hat school of Tibetan Buddhism, founded by Tsongkhapa. The name is a combination of the Mongolic word Dalai meaning ocean, and the Tibetan word Blm meaning guru, teacher, mentor. According to Tibetan dictionary, the Dalai Lama is the rebirth in a line of tulkus who were considered to be manifestations of the Bodhisattva of compassion, Avalokitesvara. The Dalai Lama is often thought to be the leader of the Gelug school, but this position belongs officially to the Ganden Tripa, which is a temporary position appointed by the Dalai Lama who, in practice, exerts much influence. The line of Dalai Lamas began as a lineage of spiritual teachers. The fifth Dalai Lama assumed political authority over Tibet. For certain periods between the 17th century and 1962, the Dalai Lama sometimes directed the Tibetan government, which administered portions of Tibet from Lhasa. The 14th Dalai Lama remained the head of state for the Central Tibetan Administration, Tibetan government in exile until his retirement on March 14, 2011. He has indicated that the institution of the Dalai Lama may be abolished in the future, and also that the next Dalai Lama may be found outside Tibet and may be female. The Chinese government rejected this and asserted that only it has the authority to select the next Dalai Lama.
History.
During 1252, Kublai Khan granted an audience to Dragon Chodral Phagpa and Karma Pakshai, the second Karmapa. Karma Pakshai, however, sought the patronage of the monk Khan. Before his death in 1283, Karma Pakshai wrote a will to protect the established interests of his sect by advising his disciples to locate a boy to inherit the Black Hat. His instruction was based on the premise that Buddhist ideology is eternal, and that Buddha would send emanations to complete the missions he had initiated. Karma Pakshai's disciples acted in accordance with the will and located the reincarnated boy of their master. The event was the beginning of the teacher reincarnation system for the Black Hat line of Tibetan Buddhism. During the Ming dynasty, the Yongle Emperor bestowed the title Great Treasure Prince of Dharma, the first of the three princes of Dharma, upon the Black Hat Karmapa. Various sects of Tibetan Buddhism responded to the teacher reincarnation system by creating similar lineages.
Unification of Tibet.
In the 1630s, Tibet became entangled in power struggles between the rising Manchu and various Mongol and Oirat factions. Ligdan Khan of the Chalka, retreating from the Manchu, set out to Tibet to destroy the Yellow Hat sect. He died on the way to Kongai, Kokonur, in 1634. His vassal Tsogkha Tage continued the fight, even having his own son Arslan killed after Arslan changed sides. Tsogkha Tage was defeated and killed by Gushi Khan of the Koshad in 1637, who would in turn become the overlord of Tibet, and act as a protector of the Yellow Church. Gushi helped the fifth Dalai Lama to establish himself as the highest spiritual and political authority in Tibet and destroyed any potential rivals. The time of the fifth Dalai Lama was, however, also a period of rich cultural development. The fifth Dalai Lama's death was kept secret for 15 years by the regent, Tibetan, Sde Srid/Wylie, Sde Srid, Sangai Gyatso. This was apparently done so that the Potala Palace could be finished, and to prevent Tibet's neighbors taking advantage of an interregnum in the succession of the Dalai Lamas. Tsumgyang Gyatso, the sixth Dalai Lama, was not enthroned until 1697. Tsumgyang Gyatso enjoyed a lifestyle that included drinking, the company of women, and writing love songs. In 1705, Losang Khan of the Koshad used the sixth Dalai Lama's escapades as excuse to take control of Tibet. The regent was murdered, and the Dalai Lama sent to Beijing. He died on the way, near Kokonur, ostensibly from illness. Losang Khan appointed a new Dalai Lama who, however, was not accepted by the Gelugpa school. Khelzang Gyatso was discovered near Kokonur and became a rival candidate. The Dzungas invaded Tibet in 1717, and deposed and killed Losang Khan's pretender to the position of Dalai Lama. This was widely approved. However, they soon began to loot the holy places of Lhasa, which brought a swift response from the Kangxi Emperor in 1718. But his military expedition was annihilated by the Dzungars in the Battle of the Salween River, not far from Lhasa. A second, larger, expedition sent by the Kangxi Emperor expelled the Dzungars from Tibet in 1720 and the troops were hailed as liberators. They brought Khelzang Gyatso with them from Kumbum to Lhasa and he was installed as the 7th Dalai Lama in 1721. Thubten Jigme Norbu, the elder brother of the 14th Dalai Lama, described these unfortunate events as follows. Thubten Gyatso, the 13th Dalai Lama, assumed ruling power from the monasteries, which previously had great influence on the regent, during 1895. Due to his 2 periods of exile in 1904 to 1909, to escape the British invasion of 1904, and from 1910 to 1912 to escape a Chinese invasion, he became well aware of the complexities of international politics and was the first Dalai Lama to become aware of the importance of foreign relations. After his return from exile in India and Sikkim during January 1913, he assumed control of foreign relations and dealt directly with the Maharaja and the British political officer in Sikkim and the King of Nepal rather than letting the Kashgar Parliament do it. Thubten Gyatso issued a declaration of independence for his kingdom in central Tibet from China during the summer of 1912 and standardized a Tibetan flag, though no other sovereign state recognized the independence. He expelled the Umbans and all Chinese civilians in the country, and instituted many measures to modernize Tibet. These included provisions to curb excessive demands on peasants for provisions by the monasteries and tax evasion by the nobles, setting up an independent police force, the abolition of the death penalty, extension of secular education, and the provision of electricity throughout the city of Lhasa in the 1920s. Thubten Gyatso died in 1933. The 14th Dalai Lama was not formally enthroned until November 17, 1950, during the People's Republic of China invasion of the kingdom. In 1951, he and the Tibetan government formally accepted the 17-point agreement by which Tibet was formally incorporated into the People's Republic of China. Fearing for his life in the wake of a revolt in Tibet in 1959, the 14th Dalai Lama fled to India, from where he led a government in exile. With the aim of launching guerrilla operations against the Chinese, the CIA funded the Dalai Lama with $1.7 million a year in the 1960s. In 2001 the 14th Dalai Lama ceded his absolute power over the government to an elected parliament of selected Tibetan exiles. His original goal was full independence for Tibet, but by the late 1980s he was seeking high-level autonomy instead. He continued to seek greater autonomy from China, but Dolma Gyari, deputy speaker of the parliament in exile said if the middle path fails in the short term, we will be forced to opt for complete independence or self-determination as per the UN Charter.
Residence.
Starting with the 5th Dalai Lama and until the 14th Dalai Lama's flight into exile during 1959, the Dalai Lamas spent winters at the Potala Palace and summers at the Norbulinka Palace and Park. Both are in Lhasa and approximately 3 kilometers apart. Following the failed 1959 Tibetan uprising, the 14th Dalai Lama sought refuge in India. The then Indian Prime Minister, Jawaharlal Nehru, allowed in the Dalai Lama and the Tibetan government officials. The Dalai Lama has since lived in exile in Dharamshala, in the state of Himachal Pradesh in northern India, where the Central Tibetan Administration is also established. Tibetan refugees have constructed and opened many schools and Buddhist temples in Dharamshala.
Searching for the reincarnation.
By the Himalayan tradition, Phowa is the discipline that transfers the mind stream to the intended body. Upon the death of the Dalai Lama and consultation with the Nishang oracle, a search for the Lama's Yangtze, or reincarnation, is conducted. Traditionally, it has been the responsibility of the High Lamas of the Gelug tradition and the Tibetan government to find his reincarnation. The process can take around 2 or 3 years to identify the Dalai Lama, and for the 14th, Tenzin Gyatso, it was 4 years before he was found. Historically, the search for the Dalai Lama has usually been limited to Tibet, though the third Tulku was born in Mongolia. Tenzin Gyatso, however, has stated that he will not be reborn in the People's Republic of China, though he has also suggested he may not be reborn at all, suggesting the function of the Dalai Lama may be outdated. The High Lamas use several ways in which they can increase the chances of finding the reincarnation. High Lamas often visit ʻlɑːmə Latsu, a lake in central Tibet, and watch for a sign from the lake itself. This may be either a vision or some indication of the direction in which to search, and this was how Tenzin Gyatso was found. It is said that Palden ʻlɑːmə, the female guardian spirit of the sacred lake ʻlɑːmə Latsu, promised Gendun Drop, the first Dalai Lama, in one of his visions that she would protect the reincarnation lineage of the Dalai Lamas. Ever since the time of Gendun Gyatso, the second Dalai Lama, who formalized the system, the regents and other monks have gone to the lake to seek guidance on choosing the next reincarnation through visions while meditating there. The particular form of Palden ʻlɑːmə at ʻlɑːmə Latsu is Chiemo Mikzorma, the victorious one who turns back enemies. The lake is sometimes referred to as Palden ʻlɑːmə Kaladeva, which indicates that Palden ʻlɑːmə is an emanation of the goddess Kali, the Shakti of the Hindu god Shiva. It was here that in 1935, the regent Retin Rinpoche received a clear vision of 3 Tibetan letters and of a monastery with a jade green and gold roof, and a house with turquoise roof tiles, which led to the discovery of Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama. High Lamas may also have a vision by a dream, or if the Dalai Lama was cremated, they will often monitor the direction of the smoke as an indication of the direction of the rebirth. Once the High Lamas have found the home and the boy they believe to be the reincarnation, the boy undergoes a series of tests to affirm the rebirth. They present a number of artifacts, only some of which belong to the previous Dalai Lama, and if the boy chooses the items which belong to the previous Dalai Lama, this is seen as a sign, in conjunction with all of the other indications, that the boy is the reincarnation. If there is only one boy found, the High Lamas will invite living Buddhas of the 3 great monasteries, together with secular clergy and monk officials, to confirm their findings and then report to the central government through the Minister of Tibet. Later, a group consisting of the 3 major servants of Dalai Lama, eminent officials, and troops will collect the boy and his family and travel to Lhasa, where the boy would be taken, usually to Tpung Monastery, to study the Buddhist sutra in preparation for assuming the role of spiritual leader of Tibet. If there are several possible reincarnations, however, regents, eminent officials, monks at the Jokhang in Lhasa, and the minister to Tibet have historically decided on the individual by putting the boys' names inside an urn and drawing one lot in public if it was too difficult to judge the reincarnation initially.
List of Dalai Lamas.
There have been 14 recognized incarnations of the Dalai Lama. There has also been one non-recognized Dalai Lama, Ngawang Yushe Gyatso, declared June 28, 1707, when he was 25 years old, by Labzang Khan as the true 6th Dalai Lama. However, he was never accepted as such by the majority of the population.
Future of the position.
The government of the People's Republic of China, PRC, has claimed the power to approve the naming of high reincarnations in Tibet, based on a precedent set by the Qianlong Emperor of the Qing dynasty. The Qianlong Emperor instituted a system of selecting the Dalai Lama and the Panchen Lama by a lottery that used a golden urn with names wrapped in clumps of barley. This method was used a few times for both positions during the 19th century, but eventually fell into disuse. In 1995, the Dalai Lama chose to proceed with the selection of the 11th reincarnation of the Panchen Lama without the use of the golden urn, while the Chinese government insisted that it must be used. This has led to 2 rival Panchen Lamas. Gyaltsab Norbu is chosen by the Chinese government's process, and Gedhun Choek Nyoma is chosen by the Dalai Lama. During September 2007, the Chinese government said all high monks must be approved by the government, which would include the selection of the 15th Dalai Lama after the death of Tenzin Gyatso. Since by tradition, the Panchen Lama must approve the reincarnation of the Dalai Lama, that is another possible method of control. In response to this scenario, Tashi Wangdi, The representative of the 14th Dalai Lama replied that the Chinese government's selection would be meaningless. You can't impose an imam, an archbishop, saints, any religion. You can't politically impose these things on people, said Wang Di. It has to be a decision of the followers of that tradition. The Chinese can use their political power, force. Again, it's meaningless. Like their Panchen Lama. And they can't keep their Panchen Lama in Tibet. They tried to bring him to his monastery many times but people would not see him. How can you have a religious leader like that? The 14th Dalai Lama said as early as 1969 that it was for the Tibetans to decide whether the institution of the Dalai Lama should continue or not. He has given reference to a possible vote occurring in the future for all Tibetan Buddhists to decide whether they wish to recognize his rebirth. In response to the possibility that the PRC might attempt to choose his successor, the Dalai Lama said he would not be reborn in a country controlled by the People's Republic of China or any other country which is not free. According to Robert D. Kaplan, this could mean that the next Dalai Lama might come from the Tibetan cultural belt that stretches across northern India, Nepal, and Bhutan, presumably making him even more pro-Indian and anti-Chinese. The 14th Dalai Lama supported the possibility that his next incarnation could be a woman. Despite the complex historical, religious and political factors surrounding the selection of incarnate masters in the exile Tibetan tradition, the Dalai Lama is open to change, author Michaela Haas writes. Why not? What's the big deal?